Hello, my nerdy Nawg-Dawgs. This is your video study guide for our word problems for Chapter 3, Multiplication and Division. Remember, you need to know the standard algorithm for multiplication, double digit multiplier that is, and you need to know the standard algorithm for long division. And again, it's single digit divisor in 4th grade. Now, mind you, could you use partial quotients to solve on a test? Sure, yes, you can. But by the end of the year, we hope that you have mastery in the double-digit multiplication and in long division. Okay, so here's a couple things to get us started. And again, when I do these study guides, the questions you'll be asked on the test are very similar. So definitely tune in, my friends. Okay, how many times can 8 be subtracted from 7,218? At the beginning of our lesson on division, this was something I presented, and we spoke about it in class today. So we can think of subtraction as being related to division. Why? Well, when I divide 7,218 by 8, I'm essentially taking 8 away from that 7,000 each time. And then my answer to this division problem will tell me how many groups of 8 I can have. And therefore, if there's something left over, and if I have a remainder, that means that it's left over and it didn't make it into a group of 8. There's a bit left. So when we see a question like, how many times can 8 be subtracted from 7,218? You could divide to find out how many groupings of 8 you could make. Another example of multiplication is they might substitute it for a symbol. And so here they're asking, what does this symbol represent? And what we need to think of is that equal sign is basically an equation. So it's saying this side is equal to this side. So how could we make that symbol plus the symbol plus the symbol equal to what's happening here? Well, they want you to acknowledge that multiplication is essentially repeated addition. So if I were trying to make this symbol equal to what's happening here, I know that that would be 477 times 3, and I could solve for it that way. But I could also think of it as repeated addition, and 477 plus 477 plus 477 would get me the same answer here as I would have there. Okay, keep that in mind. Math and Focus wants you to acknowledge what's happening there. Okay, we have done plenty of these word problems, and if you can model it, you can solve for it. I promise you that, nerdy Nawg-Dawgs. So Ruby has some Hershey Kisses. We don't know how many. Her sister has half as many as she has or does. They have 126 Hershey Kisses altogether. But how many does Ruby have? Believe me, nerdy Nawg-Dawgs, this is a problem you can solve. It's just like those twice as much. So let's kind of draw our model, and I think that'll help you get set up. So here's Ruby, here's her sister. And it says Ruby has some, but we don't know how many. But then it says her sister has half as much as Ruby has. So what does that mean? It means she has less. And in fact, Ruby has twice as much as her sister, right? If I were to split this in half, then her sister would have that much compared to Ruby's twice as much. So having half of what Ruby has is the same as saying Ruby has twice as much. You know how to model this, my friends. And then they tell us the total. So we know that altogether they have 126 Hershey Kisses. You should know how to solve for this now, right? If we know the total, meaning these 3 parts, if I were to add with that repeated addition, it would equal 126, which is the same as saying 3 times whatever the value of 1 unit is would equal 126. Now, how do we solve for this? Remember, multiplication, division, they are related. Therefore, I can use division to solve. How many units do I have? Well, I have 3 equal units. Therefore, I could solve by saying 126 divided by the 3 parts or 3 groupings will give me the answer to what? What is that answer for? The answer to that is the value of 1 unit. As these are equal units, once we solve for 1 unit, then we know what the value of that unit is. We know what the value of that unit is. You should be able to solve from here, nerdy Nawg-Dawgs. Okay, pause and solve if you need to. Next question. When divided by 10, the quotient is 42 and the remainder is 3. Remember, I've been drilling you with the vocabulary. Why? Because I told you there'd be questions on the test set up around the vocabulary. So let's kind of pick this apart. It says the quotient is 42. The remainder is 3. Well, what does quotient mean? Quotient is the answer to a division problem. And the remainder is 3. So that means that whatever is inside, the answer is 42 with 3 left over. When a number is divided by 10, so then that tells me that my divisor is 10, meaning that's the one doing the work. That's dividing. So what would need to be inside on the dividend to get the answer of 42? Think about what we know of multiplying 10 by 42 and what your answer would be. Zero math trick. So this is kind of a deep thinking question. Take what you know and see if you can solve. If what's in here divided by 10 equals that, then just like our number bonds, this times that would have to be what's in here. However, you do have a remainder 3. I'm going to leave you with that, nerdy Nawg-Dawgs. That's a deep thinking one. Okay, and now we have a 6 times as much. You should be able to model this, friends. Dylan has 6 times as many stickers as Chloe. They have 336 altogether. How many more does Dylan have than Chloe? So again, I like to start with a model, but we know that Dylan has 6 times as many as Chloe. So I'm going to start with Chloe first. There's what Chloe has. But Dylan has 6 times as much, which means 1 part, 2 part, 3 part, 4 part, 5 part, and 6 parts. So 6 parts altogether, right? So does my model now match what's being said? 6 times as many as Chloe. Okay, that's information we need. We also know that all together they have 336. So how many more does Dylan have than Chloe? Well, nerdy Nawg-Dawgs, we know that we can take the total unit amount and divide the total by how many units to solve. Now, when we do division of how many units, be sure to include this part. It's not 336 divided by 6. It's 336 divided by 7 units. Aha! Because he has 6 times as many, but Chloe still has 1 unit. So that's what you need to know. Now, what does your answer tell you? The answer tells you the value of 1 unit. So could we just do the math of this? Of course we could, but you have to know how many units you're dividing by. So again, altogether they have 336. Now, if you know that Dylan has 6 and Chloe has 1, then you could go straight to the math of that. Now you are supposed to solve for how many more Dylan has than Chloe. So what you would need to do is find out the value of one unit, then multiply Dylan by 6 to that one unit amount. But it doesn't end there, nerdy Nawg-Dawgs. Math and Focus likes multi-step questions. So the question is, how many more does Dylan have than Chloe? So you have to solve for this, and then you need to subtract Chloe's amount, right? Now, mind you, could you just say these are even, and how many more Dylan has would be the unit amount times 5? Yes. So give that a pause and try that out, my friends. Now, this question, Star's Bike Shop sold 3 bikes the first month of business. So this is kind of like what we did in our workbook where we identify all the different names. The second month, she sold 6 times as many. The third month, the shop sold 10 times as many. So don't get too intimidated here. You know how to do this, okay? So this is going to be month 1. This is going to be month 2. And this is going to be month 3. So the first month of business, I sold 3 bikes. The second month of business, I sold 6 times as many. So I need to match that 3 bikes and then make my model show 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, what is the unit amount? Well, 3 bikes. So if that's 3 bikes and this is 6 times as much, then this is 3 bikes. That's 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 3 bikes, right? The third month, the shop sold 10 times as many from the first month. So what does this need to look like? You should know how to do that, nerdy Nawg-Dawgs. From there, you should be able to answer these questions. How many bikes were sold in the 3 months total? Well, you would need to add those together. Each bike was sold for $250. How much money was made over 3 months? So you would need to find the value of each bike for each unit and each month. Oh my goodness. There you go, my nerdy Nawg-Dawgs. And in class, the last one that we did today looked like this. So there is an entirely separate video helper for this question. This will be extra credit, something very similar. Thanks so much, friends.